Good morning, wise women. I just want to take a moment before Margaret introduces all of you to Jane Ferreira. I want to mention that it was the goodness of a particular wise woman a long time ago, whose name is Jean McGurk, who initially was she was the first gal to suggest that wise women start bringing food from Mercy Learning Center to our monthly meetings. That legacy set by Jean continues as wise women continues to gather food and to get it to Mercy Learning Center. Thanks also to Sarah Hawk from time to time for a long time driving it over there, Agnes Flynn as well, and now we have Allison Allott, who has come back and forth, not only to 597, but also for all the wise women. Please remember to call me. I'll come to your house and get the food, or you can come to 597, come see my apartment, but just bring the food for Mercy Learning. We're going to continue. And now let me turn it over to Margaret.
Hey, welcome everyone. We're so happy you can join us today for our next virtual meeting. And we're especially happy that we have a wonderful speaker today, Jane Ferreira, who's president and CEO of Mercy Learning Center, a place I think most of you are familiar with, but if you're not, she's going to tell us today about all the wonderful things they do and about how the past year has affected them. So take it away, Jane.
Ladies, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Thank you for the opportunity just to talk a little bit about Mercy Learning Center and how your food contributions have been helping us along the way. The center obviously is now in its 35th year, and it's been very helpful to be able to say that we are still very much doing our mission. We haven't lost our mission at all. Even during this COVID time, we've been able to continue to do our education, educating a woman and educating a family. In our first slide, you see two women here. These two women are actually graduates of Mercy Learning Center from two different countries. And one actually on the left-hand side is a person that has been very much with us now as a childcare employee on the left-hand side. And this is what we're about, trying to help women who don't have the opportunity for education. So the next slide talks a little bit about where would you be without your education? And if you could just take a minute to think about that. You know, I grew up in public schools and I never thought twice about not having an education. My father was a school administrator, and it never came across until I got to Mercy Learning Center how important education is. And without an education, where would you be? Next. So just to take a global perspective, in the first bucket over here, almost 800 million people, adults throughout the world, can't really read or write. In the United States of America, 32 million cannot read. And believe it or not, there's another 48 million who are functionally illiterate. And what does that mean? That means that they can't really read the label on the grocery, on the cereal box, or they can't really read the label of their prescription. They're functionally illiterate. They may see the words, but they can't really comprehend it all because they don't have the vocabulary and they haven't been exposed to the literacy level that they need. In the state of Connecticut, 350,000 adults are without high school diplomas. And right here in the city of Bridgeport, 1 out of every 5 women do not have a diploma. Next slide. So our mission has always been to educate the women, educate a family, but it's to provide, in particular for low-income women who never had a chance to be educated from right here in our country, but also immigrants that have come to our country for a better way of life. Next slide. So why do we focus just on women? Well, perhaps in the beginning days, in 1987 when we opened the center, women were just the group of folks that the two educators wanted to work with. They saw that women in the school system, their moms, that they were actually educators in the schools, And they noticed these mothers couldn't read or write. So that they really wanted to do something for women. And that's how we were established. More and more research has told us that the educational level of the women will determine how well her child will advance. So if the mother only went to 4th grade, most likely the children will only go to 4th grade. If the mother is a college graduate, most likely the children will follow in her footsteps. So the mother's education is really important, especially in the raising of the family. Next slide. So our students range from 17 years old to 79 years old. And that's really an amazing gap, but the group that's probably our majority is between 24 and 44 years old. Most of these women are at or below poverty. 100% are actually moms or caretakers of children. English is not their primary language. Now, when Mercy Learning Center first started, we were basically serving the Black African American community here, and the white community, and perhaps some that spoke a different language, but we really were not open for English as a second language. But our neighborhood has changed. The city of Bridgeport has over 80 languages spoken in their schools. We here at Mercy have over 56 countries. So the diversity has made us really increase our educational scope so that we really are working with a lot of English as a second language students. This has made a huge difference in family life and also in the community. The more women that are educated, higher the income, the greater leadership is shown within the community. So again, our ability to adapt to the neighborhood has really led us to be very successful as far as the education of women. Next. So our holistic approach is to not only educate women, but to give them the life skills around that education. So we do have full-time and part-time programs. We do a lot of support services. So we have a child care program on site here. We have caseworkers here on site. We also have a vocational and college career counselor, and then we run a lot of life skills programs. What kind of life skills? Family, financial literacy, health literacy, computer skills, things that will help you as a woman to become better. All of this holistic approach is if I can remove a barrier from your life right now or help you address a barrier in your life, then most likely you'll stay in school and most likely you'll continue your educational journey. And that journey is significant because it will help your family. Next. So our programs are flexible. The curriculum moves in and out so that you can go to our part-time program, have the same textbook as if you were in the full-time program. So you can move in between programs without any missing of any pages of your education. And that is based on really the livelihood of women who sometimes lose a job and need to pick up another job. In addition to that, we add in our part-time program, we have citizenship classes so that women who are preparing for citizenship get to know all the government rules and regulations. And also we use 2 different approaches for the high school diploma. In the state of Connecticut, you have 4 different ways to get your diploma. Obviously, go to high school and finish your high school education. Go to night school or the credit diploma program and get a diploma. Pass the GED exam, which in 2014 was revised to be able to accommodate the college and career readiness standards. And then also another program called the National External Diploma Program. The National External Diploma Program, probably you haven't heard of. It's in 9 states right now. About 69 agencies use that program. It takes a woman's life skills, her any kind of work that she's done, any kind of life experience that she's had. She's tested on math, reading, and writing. She's tested at 11th grade level, and then she begins work at a 12th grade level. And there's about 8 units of work that she has to complete in 2-week spans. And there are oral exams and written exams. And you have to get 100% to be able to move ahead in the next unit. And the units are very common, like geography, history, government, finance, economics. You have to get 100 percentile and then you move on. And then when you complete your portfolio, you have a third reviewer, and that review person will approve it, and then you'll be issued a high school diploma. So at Mercy, we do both diplomas. The GED, obviously the students take it in English. That exam is extremely difficult, and it's timed. So if you're not good at taking tests, if you're not good at thinking quickly, perhaps you take the NEDP program, which is mostly self-paced. It does have time limits, but you can do it at your own pace. It is independent work, and you have an assigned assessor. So for us at the center, we average about 35 graduates a year, and almost 50-50. They'll take one or the other program as far as our student population. So it's worked very well for us. The next slide, please. So technology obviously is so important in our times. And we have 2 computer labs here. I wish I could be showing it to you in person. Anyhow, the skills start very basic. I find that some of our women who have used their gross motor skills, maybe because of the physical labor they did in their country, have a hard time using the mouse, just using that mouse and moving it around. So even something like a mouse will take a while for some of our students to learn. It's almost a third language. So if you come speaking Portuguese and you're learning English, and now you have to learn a digital language called computers, Microsoft Word. So we teach our students the whole Microsoft Office, the PowerPoint, Excel, Word. We also do some programs on the computer to help with their math skills and reading skills. We also use a computer to help with a driver's permit test that they need to take. So it's part of their curriculum. They need to become digitally certified so that we know that they can go to a job and be able to use a computer to satisfy their level of employment. So that's very important. And we have about 60 computers here on site, 30 in each lab. But I'll talk about COVID. And during COVID time right now, we have about 200 laptops that we've lent out to women who have the need at home. So we've actually gone online with a lot of our programs. Next, please. So part of our 2-generational approach at Mercy is to take care of their children. Early childhood education is essential. And we've realized over time here at Mercy that finding childcare spots in Bridgeport is a challenge. There's not only, last statistics is like 1 out of every 15 children will actually have an early childhood education experience. We know that educating our children, starting at 3 months, getting to 4 years, and getting them ready for kindergarten has been so important for their educational abilities. So we really try to help our children become English dominant and enter kindergarten in that with that curriculum background and literacy background. Next. So last year we served 157 children. Not only do we serve them in a preschool program from 9 to 2, then we have another group that comes in from 2 to 5. So we actually use our center for 2 different groups of women. The students that come in, they're doing a basic curriculum for early childhood education. On top of that, we do a mother-child reading program. We provide a new book to each child each week. And the mom is to take that home. We teach the mom how to read to the child. And then they're to do that every night before part of their bedtime routine. And we really try to help. You have to imagine that if you're from a country that never had electricity, he went down with the sun. It wasn't like you had a bedtime routine. So when you even come to our country, you're looking at an opportunity where, what do I do at night? We have running water, we have electricity. What do I do with my children? And then you set a bedtime routine. And that's been very helpful to understand how to assimilate into our community, but also to help give structure to your children. And besides that, of course, we have volunteers normally in normal situations where they come in with music and guest readers and field trips for our children. Next. So teaching with the 2 generations of children and adults here, moms and children, has been really important. But then to be able to keep them in school, we have social services. And we have 2 caseworkers right now And we do parenting workshops, immigration counseling. We have some legal counselors, some are volunteered attorneys that help us. And then we do a lot of referrals to different agencies. And then right here on site, we have a food and diaper pantry. The food goes out daily, right now during COVID, and also the diapers. The role of the social service team is really to try to keep our women in school. And that means that if they have a domestic violence situation, if they ran out of food, if they can't pay their rent, if they're looking for a job, a part-time job, a full-time job, that's what we do. We try to get them more stable and help their families in any way that we can. A lot of times we do work with their spouses, helping them with their pursuit of work, and also with their teenagers who are trying to get into college. A lot of our children don't get as much college preparation prior to leaving high school. So we actually, through some volunteers, try to help our teenagers, especially our juniors and seniors in the high schools here in Bridgeport, prepare for college and move them along to college. Next. Our job counselor, she's working with about 64 last year alumni. This year we're a little smaller. I think we're close to 50 of our graduates are in college right now. Obviously, a lot of our graduates, because of the schools being hybrid, they had to stay home with their children and not be able to pursue their college. But right now we have about 50 students in college who graduated from Mercy Learning Center, studying a variety of fields, mostly a medical field, but also bookkeeping and accounting, nursing. And to move on. So our employer and college counselor really is trying to find jobs for our students and also getting them settled in colleges. The three colleges that we use for at least entry is obviously Housatonic right here in Bridgeport, but we do have some going to Norwalk and some going to Gateway because of the programs that they're offered. We're having a student who's graduating with their bachelor's degree from UB this year in May, and we actually had 6 students graduate last year with their associate's degrees from Housatonic or Gateway and moved on to a 4-year program. So that's the stepping stone for their experience. Next. Our enrichment program, again, it tries to give skills to women that may not have gotten skills. If you don't really have parents or someone guiding you along in life, a lot of times things fall through the cracks. So we do a lot of life skill programs as far as how to parent, how to be a good mom, practice with job skills, interviewing, doing mock interviews with our students. A lot on health, just normal health as far as first aid, understanding like what neosporin is, understanding how much cough syrup you give to your child, how do you use the droppers, for medicines with your children. Talk a lot about women's health on the OB/GYN appointments and prenatal care. And then we go into finance, how to keep a budget, what's your right as a tenant, preparing, thanks to the VITA program, a lot of our students use the VITA volunteers to help with their income tax preparation. And then obviously using the bank and using checks. It's just simple things that a lot of our students, because they didn't have to exchange with money, didn't have any exposure to that. So that's part of the understanding, not only getting education, math, science, social studies, history, but also those other cultural skills that you need to really exist in this community. Next. So where are we right now at Mercy Learning Center? Obviously on March 13th, we had to close our doors because of the governor's orders, and we went online. And we realized right away that very few students could go online because they didn't have any computers or internet. So for April, May, and June, we really worked with students that had access, which was very few. During that time period, this chart will tell you, we helped a lot of people stay in their apartments, gave out a lot of food. This is the food list here of 39,000 is gift cards that we gave out, $100 increments of gift cards so that students could get milk and fresh vegetables and meat. Our diapers, all volunteer diapers that came in. grocery cards are the $45,000 worth of grocery cards, but the $39,000 is food bags, I'm sorry. So this is a 3-month period without really being that organized because we didn't know how long COVID was going to last. This is how we kept people alive and moving forward. As people got sick with COVID and they don't have any family or friends, many of them live very isolated in apartments. Our staff started to deliver food to their apartments on a weekly basis until they got through the COVID. Sometimes it was 3 weeks, sometimes it was 6 weeks, sometimes it was 9 weeks, depending on who got sick and how long the quarantine was lasting for our students. Right now, we're close to $500,000 that we've given out. This only goes to June 30th, but the next 6 months that we need to talk about, we're giving out about 151 bags, I say average, about 150 bags of food every week. About 30 to 40 families we're still supporting. They're different families, different people get COVID. Rents, we're paying rents to keep people in their apartments, utility bills. In July, we wrote a grant. Actually, in late April and May, we wrote grants realizing that this could last longer. We were able to purchase about 200 computers. So those that didn't have computers or didn't have a cell phone, they've been given the computers to work from home. Then we had to set up internet access sometimes before the schools started setting up internet to be able to help our women stay with their educational plan and also our children. So during the months of June, July, and August, we ran our family literacy program online for our children and also kept our adults in education. On September 8th, we actually brought everybody back to the building because the virus had gone down. We were wearing our masks and we actually rearranged our whole building. So we had 6 feet of distance with desk, windows were open, and we brought everybody in. And we had to go from 1,100 students, we went down to 300 students because of the regulations, the protocols for COVID. And we stayed open for 53 days, which we're very happy about because we got to see at least students back here. And we had some wonderful volunteers that volunteered to teach larger groups so they could come, and we kept everybody in cohorts so we'd keep everybody healthy. And I have to tell you, as of today, we have not had any virus here at the center. We have not had anything traced back to us in the center. Since June, I've had 44 employees here, and I've had all the staff working and trying to keep everyone employed, but also working with our student population. Since July till today, we're giving out food, right? And we're still doing all of this. So it's about $500,000, as I said, that we have used out of our budget just to support moms and their kids and keeping everybody healthy. Right now, I have 3 people that have COVID. I'm watching 12 that are recovering from COVID. I have 1 husband that's in the hospital very seriously on a ventilator right now. So we've lost 3 husbands during this time period, very young people that have passed away, as we all have lost people, probably, and obviously in the community of Westport and all communities. So it has been a very challenging time for many of us. I just wanted to show you this slide only because of all the wonderful work for the food pantry that the Wise Women have done for us. You've been one of our steady memberships that have kept on. You haven't forgotten that COVID is still here. You haven't forgotten that people are very hungry and need the food. So I want to thank you very much for all of you for getting it over to Barbara and coordinating it all to get to the center. So that's been fabulous and such a great support to our women and children. So thank you so much for what you do and have done since Jean introduced us to each other. It's been a wonderful relationship and very supportive. So I thank all of you. And especially Barbara for coordinating all to get to the center. Next. I want to show you a few slides about what we had to do. So you see our kids with a mask on. We had to rearrange our childcare. We had to rearrange our desk. So we see a lot of empty spots, every other spot where we could get our students in. We stayed in school until the Friday before Thanksgiving. And then since the Friday of Thanksgiving, everybody is back online right now. and we're just waiting for the numbers to come back. I'm hoping by March that we might have our school back open for everyone to come back in. I'm hoping. It all depends on the virus. Next, please. So last year, we would have about 197 tutors. Right now, we have 80 tutors that are all working online. So everything has changed because of the number of students and our volunteers. But normally, our volunteers help us with about $1 million worth of support. If we had to pay them for teaching, we'd need another almost $1.5 million to help us out with all the programs that we run. So it's a great benefit for those that are able to volunteer to help us out that way. Next. Tutoring is our major program. And just so you have knowledge of this, when we can get everybody back in the building, we look for tutors that are good in math or good in reading. Either a math tutor or a reading tutor or a citizenship tutor, someone that's great with US government and history. And the commitment is basically 4 hours a week, 2 days a week for 2 hours with a group of at least 3 to 5 women. Right now, I have to tell you, our tutors are tutoring one-on-one by computer. It makes it very easy. So we have one-on-ones, and we have some tutors that are doing a group with like a Zoom here, and they're doing, actually they're using Google Meet to teach in Google Classroom, and they're doing like 1-on-9 students. Some of them that are retired teachers and that have been able to help us out this way, but it's all right now on our computers as we're teaching. So there's lots of opportunity, even now, if you'd like to be a tutor. I want to stay remote, as we say, distance learning. And then there'll be many opportunities once we're back into an environment that's post-COVID to have volunteers. Next, please. So our results are about 15,000 women we've served, and right now we have 382 graduates. And you might say to me, hey, Jane, that's not very many women, considering you have 34 years history. And I would tell you that in the first 15 years, we had less than 100 people that we served. And then after we were able to get this building that we're in, and then we renovated it in 2012, even our basement, because we had run out of space, we're able to serve about 1,100 women a year. Now the graduates is slow. Most of our women come in at a 2nd and 3rd grade reading level. So they can tell me they're from Venezuela or Colombia or from Honduras, and they might say I have a 2nd grade reading level. They'll test maybe a 1st grade, but they'll tell me they're from Harding High School or Central High School or the Military Academy or whatever here, and they're still testing at 3rd grade level. So if you come in at 3rd grade level, it takes 3-4 years before we can get you to the high school diploma. And it depends on how your life is, whether you're a mom, how many children you have, and whether you're working part-time. Most of our women are moms, and most of them are working part-time. So it takes a while to get to that high school level. But as I said before, about 30 to 35 graduates a year. And usually they're here 3 or 4 years before we can see that graduate diploma. Next. I'm just showing you the trend of enrollment right now from 2012 when we opened up our basement, actually, and we're able to take in about another 500 women in the course of the time, slowly increasing our staff. So that's where we are today. 1061, the new number for this year is going to be about 300, 345 maybe, depending on where we end up with the COVID experience. So just to give you a little track here. Next. Last year's highlights, probably what's significant is the number of hours of instruction of tutors, the last number of over 42,000 number of hours that we were able to serve our students. Next. People ask me, why do women come to Mercy Learning Center? I have to tell you the first reason is to help their children with their homework. A lot of times they're with the 1st grade or 2nd grade and they don't understand enough English, or they haven't been educated to start to understand how to help them with their schoolwork. It's been really hard. The moms have told us how challenging it is when their kids are home all day and they need to help them with the schoolwork logging in and helping them that way. So I think our moms have learned things with this online education, but it's really been a challenge in their homes, in their apartments. But if you look at this chart, you're looking at number one on the bottom there is helping their kids with homework, and then trying to find a job, helping them understand a doctor's appointment. So those are reasons to come to Mercy Learning Center initially. Then we talk about their driver's license, and then we talk about earning a high school diploma. And for most women, they never even thought they were smart enough to get a high school diploma. Their self-esteem is so low, and their lack of confidence. So I think because of the volunteers and the community spirit that we have here, our staff, we're always trying to say, you are smart, you can do this, you are able to get a high school diploma. And then college, for some of them, they never thought they'd be in college, and here they are 4 years later getting a diploma or a certificate or whatever they're doing, or 2 years later. So those dreams are a lot of times put in place because they're talking to volunteers, tutors, other staff members here saying, yes, you can do this. Yes, you can. This is hope for you and your family. And this is really their accomplishments. But the first thing is, I want to help my kid with their homework. And that's why they come in. Next. So our successes last year are going to be very different than this year. I can tell you right now, we have just 2 people that passed their diplomas. Last year, we had 33 diplomas. Right now, we have 1 that passed the GED and 1 that passed the NEDP, and that's since July. And that's just because of the COVID environment. U.S. citizens, we have 7 that passed the test. The citizenship test has been delayed quite significantly since September. So we don't see, now we're starting to see an uptick starting right now, where people are starting to get their fingerprints, some biometrics done, which was delayed for 6, 8, 9, 12 months. So we're starting to see that with an uptick again. And last year, 7 associate's degrees and 4 college certificates. And that's the associate's degrees, basically in accounting, medical technicians, certificates like that. And the certificates, the associate's degrees, out of those 7 women, we have 6 of them actually in a 4-year program right now, which is great to see. So we're happy about that. Next, please. Just a quote from one of our graduates, how important being at the center has really changed her life and made her life stronger. And she's very proud to be a mother. Next. Give you a little idea of our revenue. Basically run about a $2.3 million budget. You see last year we got a lot more money in, and that was really because of COVID. We also spent it for the COVID situation. Our average cost is about 86 cents for the program. 7.5 cents goes to fundraising and another 7% to management. You can see that we're pretty balanced by the colors, but our individual donations are what keeps us alive. People giving from anywhere from $5 to $10,000 or whatever they're able to do. That's what keeps Mercy alive. 9%, a little under 9% is federal dollars. It comes from, actually, I think on this is 6% federal dollars that comes from the government last year. So we don't receive city funding, and we are not eligible for state funding. We get the federal grant through the state adult education, but that's how it comes in. Next. This is just different ways that people have supported us, depending on what they're interested in supporting. Early childhood education for us is about $2,500 a year in expenditures, which is probably the cheapest way to put your kid in a childcare is to come to Mercy Learning Center because it's free. Our moms get to bring their children free and get their education while their children are being educated. Next. Ways that folks can get involved. Obviously, you're coordinating a food drive on a regular basis for us, but obvious other needs, I guess, more obvious are volunteer tutors. We always need more tutors. When our childcare is open, we'd love to have people come in and work with our children. The more words and vocabulary they hear, the better they are, okay? So that's just different ways that folks can come in once we get to a post-COVID environment. Next. I think that's all for you. I hope that wasn't too much. And I hope if you have questions, I'd be glad to answer that. I just want to say that working and running a nonprofit, just like running our own lives during COVID, has been a challenge. It's unbelievable. Watching people help each other has been a terrific experience of how communities have reached out, and especially to help the Bridgeport community. Without that help, I really would say that a lot of people just would not have food, and they would be standing in lines for hours. This way they can come and pick up food here, or they're delivered to their house, especially when they're sick. So that partnership of really knowing where the need is and saying, we have the need, and we can definitely distribute that need and resolve that need has been a great partnership with the Wise Women and also other community members in Westport that have supported us. So it's been a challenge. I think many people are in a fatigue syndrome right now. And I think the hope is that continue to help each other, continue to have hope that we'll get through all of this as we have. You know, we're entering 12 months now, and I have to say that we're successful. We've been able to get through this. Unfortunately, you know, it's cost us a lot of lives as a nation, but I think in our individual communities, it's the support that you give each other and the conversations and the letters and the ability to chat and have a meeting like this today. I think that's all uplifting for people. So I really congratulate you on keeping your community together and then also your ability to outreach to others. So thank you very much.
Okay, well, am I on? Okay, great. That's a wonderful range of service, and it's an incredible amount of people that you serve. So it's great to know you exist, and we certainly hope that when COVID is over, you'll be able to continue what you've been doing. We do have a number of questions, so I'll start out and go through them. We have a couple of related questions to start with, where people are just asking how people find out about Mercy Learning Center. We're assuming there are many people in Bridgeport who would need your services and would certainly do well by getting them. So the first question is how those participants would become connected with Mercy Learning Center. And a related question is about potential volunteers. How do they find out about you, and how do they become involved?
Okay. For students to come to Mercy Learning Center, we don't really advertise. If we advertise, we'd have lines, to be honest with you.
Right.
So what we do is we usually register students in August and in January. When we're not in the COVID environment, it's normally an August registration where they come into the building and they're registered and tested. And when they're tested, then we can place them in different classes on what their level is. And we do that again in January. It's really word of mouth. Students tell other students. Students on the bus will tell students, oh, this is where I go to school. And a lot of the health clinics really send moms to us, especially, and some of the schools will send moms to us who realize that the moms need either English or they need to get the high school diploma. So we do get some referrals from our community partners, but I would have to say the best referrals are really from students telling other students, and that's how we get everybody here. The National External Diploma Program, you might even see that in the Westport Library. What we do is we do send flyers to libraries, especially Westport, Fairfield, Trumbull, and Stratford, actually. Those towns, we're supposed to help serve women for the National External Diploma Program. So we will send brochures to those librarians, and with the hope that they will refer women who may have a need for a diploma to come this way. For our volunteers, we usually send an announcement in August and again around January to different local communities. So we might send it so that they could put it in their newsletters for their community groups. We send a lot to the churches, the synagogues, advertising that we are in need of volunteers. So again, it's through organizations that have helped us, that we're reaching out asking for volunteers. And we normally, in the old days, we used to put it actually in the newspaper. That doesn't seem to anybody really does that anymore. So we usually use the patches and things like that that are out there on the internet.
Okay, thank you. Next question is fairly simple logistical questions. Where you're located and how difficult it is to get there, to park, those kinds of issues for potential volunteers we're talking about.
I have to tell you, I have a great snow plow guy. He's my janitor, and you could actually you could walk without any ice today at Mercy Learning Center. He's fabulous.
Fabulous. Okay.
Yeah. So we're right off the 95. You can actually see our building as you come across. You get off at exit. What exit you get off? Because I don't come that way anymore.
27, I think. Yeah.
Exit 27. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Exit 27 is worded. Get off at that exit, and when you get off the exit, you just take two lefts because you have to go around the block. We have 2 parking lots for tutors because we usually have maybe 80 tutors at a time here. So we have actually 2 parking lots that are reserved just for tutors, and it's right behind our building. So it's easy parking. We have a handicap ramp. Our oldest tutor has been 90-something years old. So, and our youngest has been right out of college or in college, 19 or 20. So we have again, another range of volunteers that come and help us out. So the parking is easy. We're at 637 Park Avenue. So we're right under actually the 95 interstate, and our building is sitting right next to it. If you're in one of our rooms, you can actually, if you're on the 3rd floor, you can actually look out and check the traffic situation before you go home.
Oh, that's important. Okay, well, that's great to know. You're so easy to get to. Our next question concerns perhaps some personal anecdotes you might have. You described many, many different services, but could you give us a few examples of some of these success stories of somebody who arrives in Bridgeport from another country, just not knowing what to do, and how they go through all of the different, I'm assuming it's a process that is not overnight, and you've had some incredible successes of people finishing college and so on, but however along the way they get through these.
Sure. I can tell you that our African student, I'm looking at her picture. I should have brought it over here for you to see it, but she came from the Congo, and the Congo was fighting against the East and West Congo, and she came here and with her son, and then she had 2 other children here. But in the course, she probably had some education in the Congo. Her weakness was math and science. She was with us for about 3.5 years. And she graduated and went to Housatonic Community College. She stayed there for a lot of times our students don't go full-time into college. They have to take 1 class or 2 classes because they're working. So she was working in a nursing care environment as a healthcare worker. She was a CNA. She was working there, but she wanted to be a nurse. And when she finished at Housatonic, she went into St. V's College of nursing, and that's where she actually got her bachelor's degree is from St. V's College, and now she's a nurse, and she's a nurse actually at a nursing home right here in Bridgeport. So her name was Mami Mamangubambu, and we call her Mommy for short. But she's very successful. She's a nurse, and she's a lovely nurse. And her 3 children have grown. They're not even out of high school yet, but she's done well. I'll tell you about Jenny. Jenny came from Mexico. She didn't speak any English when she arrived here, and she had a newborn child, and he was with us for 4 years in our child care. And Jenny was smart. You could tell she was smart. She learned English in about 2 years, but she had only gone to like 2nd grade. So she was with us for about 4 years. And she graduated, and she went to Housatonic Machinery program, the manufacturing certificate program, for 9 months. And we were able to get him into their preschool program for that 9-month period. the son. And she not only finished that program, but got a job at Northeast Laser in Shelton. And she's one of their star employees, so they feature her on all their literature. She was able to, she's been at Northeast Laser now for 4 years at least, maybe the 5th year. She's gone up in the ranks. She's well liked. They're paying for her to finish her education right now. So she is actually at Housatonic, but then she'll be going to Southern to finish up. She bought her first house.
Wow.
We put her through a program for first-time home buyers, and she bought a small starter home in Shelton with her son. So she's still there, thanks to some staff that work on real estate issues with our students and get them into these programs. She's doing quite well. So she's an example of someone that is determined, has the abilities, mental capacity, truly a great mother. And hasn't stopped learning. She's great. She checks in about twice a year with us. When she needs us, she'll call us more often. But right now we're good. We've heard from her during the holiday time, and she's fine, and she's working great. So, you know, what's amazing to me, well, I'll tell you about Vanessa too. There's one more story here. So Vanessa came in, and I remember meeting her, and I couldn't understand her Spanish. And I said to my staff, what kind of Spanish does she speak? And they're like, we don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? I never heard this kind of Spanish. And we're like, I don't know what kind of Spanish it is. So as we learned from her, she came from Mexico, but she spoke a Aztec language, an indigenous language. And when she came to the center, she was learning Spanish, but she was mixing some Spanish with the indigenous language, which I can't remember the name right now, but so she came to the US without any Spanish and without any English. While she was waiting, you know, first coming in, she learned some Spanish as she was in the center talking to the ladies here. She decided to pick up the Spanish. So she was actually very good at Spanish, and then very good at English. So right now she is in Housatonic Community College. So she's studying to be an accountant, and she will be an accountant. But it's amazing that someone can speak tribal languages. I had a girl that actually, she went to Trumbull School and they wouldn't accept her. She was 17 years old. She came, technically she came from Syria, but she wasn't raised in Syria. That was where a refugee camp was. So she lived most of her life in a refugee camp. And she was learning, her father was a doctor. So that's why they got to be in this refugee camp. Otherwise they probably never have survived. And she just talks about when she's an amazing girl. She's actually at Norwalk Community College right now. She wants to be a cardiologist, and believe me, she will be a cardiologist because she has all the drive. She's a short little young lady, but she has all the drive to be a doctor. And she speaks like 5 languages, but learned English in a year here, graduated with a GED in about 14 months, and then went on to the community college. And she says, I'm stateless. My country where I was born does not exist anymore. I don't have a birth certificate. All I have is this birth date of January. Everybody gets January 1st, whatever year. And that's how she is in this country. But she's great, and she will be my cardiologist one day, I'm sure of it. So she's finished, and she'll be going to, she'll be finishing at Norwalk in May, and then she's looking at a 4-year school. So we've got her actually looking beyond just Connecticut because her abilities are, maybe Smith College or something like that will pick up on her. So.
Wow, well, that's certainly impressive. And you touched on this a bit, but could you talk a little bit more about what happens to participants after they graduate? You mentioned some come back, they need other services, or do they come back and just check in on people, or do they maybe mentor some of the people who currently are enrolled, or what sort of contact do you typically have once people graduate from your designated program?
Well, I think with COVID, a lot of people called us, our graduates called us when they got sick. So we heard from a lot of them that got sick and they needed help because they have no family here and we're really their family. So I definitely think that put a new meaning to their relationship with Mercy Learning Center. Students, they have monthly meetings with our college counselor. Right now they're by Zoom, but we bring all our alumni in once a month. And it's like a support group to chat, tell them which college courses are which, just like you would with graduates. So right now it's on a Zoom call like this that they can meet with our college counselors. Sometimes I'm on the meetings and we'll talk about their life, how they're struggling in school or with their jobs, what their next step in their journey is. So we'll talk with them that way. Most of our alumni that are in college, they speak with our college counselor at least twice a semester. They're interviewed twice a semester. We're paying, we have a scholarship here, so we pay for a lot of tuitions so that we can start them in college until they can either get their FAFSA or they can get on the scholarship programs like their foundational programs. So many times we'll give them the first couple of courses through a scholarship fund that we have here just to start them. We don't want them to miss a beat if they're on the educational track. Some students don't choose to go to college. They choose just to go to work. And then we're looking for the right kind of job for them based on their skill set. And our college counselor will meet with them.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Next question concerns other types of services. You described quite a range of services you provide, and I know financial concerns are always a problem, but if you could possibly expand to other kinds of services, what would they be and what would you be looking for to fit them into your program?
Well, we have like some psychotherapists that work with us. So a lot of mental health is a big problem here in the city. You really can't get mental health appointments for 9 months. So we've had some mental health workers, psychologists that have worked with our students. Those with counseling degrees have worked with our students, especially if they're English fluent. We've had a couple of people that understand Spanish that have been very helpful. They'll volunteer to work with our students either on site here or right now through the Zoom call. We have attorneys that work with us both for immigration issues, but also for tenant issues, landlord issues, could be a car accident, things like that. So we've had lawyers volunteer. We've had yoga teachers that volunteer for our childcare and also for our adults. That's been very helpful. Music teachers that have come in to do music with our kids. And so those are the different, we probably have a team of about 15 or 20 that normally come in once or twice a week to work with our children in our childcare. They usually spend about 3 hours a morning or an afternoon to work with our children. And they do a lot with one-on-one work with our children with manipulatives, reading, telling stories, or whatever. Does that answer the question, Margaret?
Yes, that's wonderful. Yeah. That's great news. We have another question about the mentioned 56 countries. Without naming all 56, could you give us a flavor for what those are and maybe the range of languages that you're dealing with as well?
Sure. Almost every country from Central America is here, okay? Probably the past 3 years, we see a very much increase of Brazilians in Bridgeport. So that's been a group of women that we haven't seen. So Portuguese, so Spanish is our #1 language here. I mean, English is the center runs on English, but the population learners Spanish, Portuguese, and then after that, it's just minimal different countries. We have Arabic speakers. I mean, we've had Russian, we've had Polish, Italian, but the primary languages are right now Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic. Students from Central America, from South America, mostly, we have almost every country here from South America. And then from Africa, we mostly see Eritrea. the Congos, Nigeria, Sudan. So mostly the northern coast, east and west coasts are probably what we see from Africa. From the European countries, once in a while we'll get someone, and I'm saying 1 or 2 students from Russia, from Poland, from Italy. Those are probably the 3 countries that we get students from. Asia, Chinese, Thailand, mainland China, Thailand, Cambodia we've had, and Vietnam. So.
Oh, well, that's incredible. That has to be an incredible challenge dealing with that range of origins for people. Our next couple questions refer to the relationships you would have with other programs. The first one asks about government programs. We know, for instance, that most departments of ed will have an adult ed program with a GED and so on, or, you know, other not-profit groups will exist, or health departments and so on. What is your relationship with those agencies?
So we're accountable to the Connecticut Department of Adult Education. So we run CASAS exams here, which is what the state of Connecticut requires if you're going to get any federal money, federal grants. We have a great relationship. We're in the top 1% of adult education in the state. So, you know, we were just awarded the Innovative and Advancements of Adult Education. We just got that award in October, a national award for our innovation with a national external diploma program. So we have a great relationship with the adult education of the state. The next agency that we deal with a lot is the Department of Early Childhood Education for our licensed childcare. So, you know, we have a star rating for our childcare as far as our licensing. So those are the 2 accountability groups that we are. We don't have any relationship with the Board of Ed in Bridgeport. We don't need to do that. It's not part of our mission. As far as other agencies here, we work with the clinics, the health clinics. We work with Sacred Heart University with their School of Nursing, and physical therapists have been great with us. Also Fairfield U with their nursing program, and sometimes their learning projects, learning school projects that the students will do. So we work a lot with the collaboration there, and also the University of Bridgeport for their work-study students. So those are 3 universities that we work with. A lot of their professors will do some type of programs here for the center, like hearing test and physicals. Physical therapy comes here for our children. Great department at Sacred Heart University. Dr. Donna Bowers comes here often to work with our children. The colleges, number 1 is Housatonic that we work with, because that's what it's easy for our students. It's right here, and then Gateway and Norwalk. Those are the 3 colleges that we work mostly with. Housatonic we have a direct liaison with. We work with the Greater Bridgeport Transit to help with the bus passes that we need. Besides that, we do a lot of our own internal. We track a lot of our own cases. We do. We try to get help with different agencies depending on what the services are. We work with Building 1 in Stamford, Building 1 community in Stamford for immigration work right now. They've been very helpful to us. We work with some private attorneys on immigration. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's—
Yes, it does. That's wonderful information. We have time for, I think, only probably 1 more question. So I'll ask a related question to the previous one, and that's about financial services the government offers for, let's say, rent. I mean, we heard a lot about rental assistance programs under COVID, and I know you say that your agency was providing rental assistance as well. Have you had good experience with people getting that assistance from the government, or how does that work out for you?
It's been a challenge. We're not receiving any funding for COVID. All of our COVID funding has come through individual support. We have not received anything from the government to our center here. The food, to get food into the center here, we'd have to have a large organization such as like Operation Hope in Fairfield or Council for Churches here in Bridgeport, we don't have the facility to hold food to use the government food supply. So that's a challenge that way. As far as our women getting rent assistance, it's been a long and hard battle. I've known out of our situation, we've only had 2 women actually get rent assistance in the 12 months. And that's with trying to get through the phones and the paperwork and the internet connections has been really tough for us. So we only know 2 cases so far that have gotten rent assistance. As far as the utility companies, it's been a real challenge working with them. They've cut off our women. So if your bill was outstanding in February, they cut you off. So if you had an outstanding bill in February and here it is now April and you haven't paid, they cut our women off from electricity and heat. So then we have to go back and argue and then go up to Pura and try to talk to the governing agency to try to help poor people. Same thing with Optimum, the cable network here. They cut so many people off in March and April that didn't pay their bill in February. That a lot of our people didn't have internet to go for their kids online. And I think that information got up to the governor, and that's really why they started to get hotspots in Bridgeport, and then they started to provide that service in September. But up until September, you couldn't get cable here to turn cable back on. So it's been tough. If you're poor, it's tough. Excuse me. It's a challenge.
We're certainly glad people can come to you.
I mean, any type of advocacy with UI and EverSource, the Optimum cable, that's to disconnect kids that were supposed to be going to school in April and May. And at that time, our government was trying to organize so many things they didn't get to it. So it's been tough.
Yeah, well, we're certainly impressed by everything you've done and everything your agency continues to do. So we wish you luck in the future. And unfortunately, we are out of time. So I'll say goodbye to the wise women. And we look forward to future contact with you and Mercy Learning Center. And we're so happy you exist and you do everything you do. So bye-bye now. Bye to our members. We'll all be again together face-to-face at some point. So we'll have to have you back, Jane, when we can actually see you in person. I know we can see you now, right? But okay. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.